The alarm echoed through the great hall of the Galactic Council like a warning from the stars themselves. A deep, metallic sound rolled through the air, bouncing off the silver walls. The calm discussions of hundreds of alien delegates stopped at once. Flashing red lights filled the curved chamber. Holographic screens blinked awake, showing warning signs in every known language. The delegates, tall, short, scaled, furred, and feathered, all turned toward the center of the hall where Speaker Nora stood frozen. Something had gone terribly wrong. The Galactic Council Hall had never sounded like this before. Built on the space station Nexus Prime, it was usually a place of peace and diplomacy. But now even the air felt heavier, as if the entire galaxy had stopped breathing. Nora pressed a trembling hand on her console. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. "Computer, display the source of the alarm." The main screen at the front of the hall flickered. Static filled the air. Then through the distortion, a weak human-like voice came through, desperate and shaking. "This is Colony Leader David from Kepler 442b. We need help. They came from nowhere. Our cities are burning. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help now." The hall fell completely silent. The message cut out for a moment. Then another voice appeared, smaller, younger, and filled with fear. "Mom? Where are you? The sky is red, the buildings are falling. I can't find you anywhere. Please come back." The voice of the child faded into static. Then, nothing. For several long seconds no one moved. The flashing red lights slowed to a steady pulse, washing the hall in a deep crimson glow. Every delegate could feel it, the chill of helplessness. Speaker Nora finally spoke, her tone calm but heavy. "Computer," she said quietly, "replay the message." The child's voice echoed again, softer this time but more painful to hear. Some of the council members looked down. Others covered their faces with their hands. The vegan colony on Kepler 442b was known throughout the sector for its peace. They were farmers, scientists, and healers. They grew food for more than 20 worlds. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no defenses. Council member Blake, a tall, blue-skinned being from the water world Aquatica, raised one of his webbed hands. "Speaker Nora," he said, his voice uneasy, "what do we know about the attackers?" Nora touched her console again. A new image appeared, a fleet of dark ships moving through the void. Their shapes were rough and jagged like predators built for killing. "They appeared from deep space 3 days ago," she explained. "No identification signals. No answers to any communication attempts. They went straight to Kepler 442b and started their attack." A low hum of worried voices filled the room. Some delegates spoke quickly in their own languages. Others simply stared at the screen in disbelief. Council member Rita, a tall green-skinned woman from the forest world of Solana, stood up. Her voice trembled slightly. "The vegans have no military, no defenses at all. We must send ships." Nora shook her head. "Our nearest fleet is 4 sectors away. 6 weeks travel at best. By then Kepler 442b will be gone." The hall erupted with noise. Everyone spoke at once. Panic, anger, fear. "They need help now." "What about the mercenaries?" "Hire the private fleets. Evacuate who we can." But every suggestion hit the same wall: distance, time, and politics. The Galactic Council had been built for peace. For centuries, it had solved trade disputes and border problems. It was not built for war. Then from the back of the hall, a quiet voice rose above the noise. "What about the humans?" The room froze. Every eye turned to the speaker, a young council member named Omar from the garden world of Bloom. His tone was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Nora blinked, surprised. "The humans?" she repeated slowly. "You cannot be serious." "Why not?" Omar asked. "They have fast ships. They have trained soldiers. They know how to fight. They could reach Kepler in days, not weeks." Blake made a disgusted sound. "They are Deathworlders," he said. "Their planet kills everything that lives on it: storms, beasts, poison air. They are too violent, too dangerous." Omar looked directly at him. "Dangerous to who?" he asked softly. "To the raiders? To the ones burning our colonies? That sounds useful to me." The council hall filled again with noise, this time louder, more divided. Half the delegates shouted against the idea, calling humans monsters and savages. The other half whispered that they might be the only hope. Rita stood again, her expression firm. "I have worked with humans before," she said. "They are not monsters. They are survivors. Strong enough to live through anything. Strong enough to fight for others too." "Strong enough to kill," Blake muttered. "Strong enough to protect," Rita replied. Her words silenced the hall again. Nora looked around at the sea of faces, fear, doubt, hope, all mixing together. She closed her eyes for a moment, then gave her answer. "Send the message," she said quietly. "To Earth." The hall went silent once more. A single deep hum filled the air as the signal began to transmit, a long pulse of light traveling across the void toward a small blue world. Far away, beyond the reach of the Council's fleets, Earth was about to hear the galaxy's call for help. And the galaxy was about to remember why humanity was feared. The message from the Galactic Council traveled through empty space for days, carried by light and code across the stars. It passed dead worlds, glowing nebulae, and quiet stations until it finally reached a small blue planet, Earth. At first, it appeared as just another signal in the noise of the universe. But deep beneath the surface of the planet, inside a black tower buried under miles of rock, the signal found its way into a machine that was always listening. A soft alarm pulsed in the control room of UNSC Command Center, Earth Defense Headquarters. Rows of screens came alive, showing static and broken transmissions. Lieutenant Sarah Monroe turned in her chair. "Sir, we've got something incoming." Source: Galactic Council Frequency. General Adrian Holt, a tall man with gray eyes and a voice like gravel, stepped closer. "Play it," he said simply. The room fell silent as the recording began. "This is Colony Leader David from Kepler 442b. We need help. They came from nowhere. Our cities are burning. Please, anyone who can hear this." Then came the sound that froze everyone in place, the voice of the child. "Mom, where are you? The sky is red." The message ended in static. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the machine seemed to fall quiet. Then the general turned toward the main screen where the message kept looping. "Run a verification," he said. "Is this real?" Sarah typed quickly. "Yes, sir." "Confirmed. It's genuine." The signal was boosted through the Galactic Council's main network. "They're asking for help." The general nodded once. "Then we answer." He turned toward his officers. "Alert the Fifth Fleet. Prepare for emergency jump. Get me Captain Reyes." Scene 2, the fleet awakens. Far above Earth, in orbit, the Fifth Expeditionary Fleet floated like a sleeping giant. 12 massive ships hung against the black sky, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels built from gray titanium and human stubbornness. When the call reached them, lights began to flash across their hulls. Crew members rushed to battle stations. Inside the lead ship HSS Vengeance, Captain Elias Reyes stood on the bridge watching the Earth's curved horizon. His second-in-command, Commander Lien Cho, handed him a data pad. "Distress call from Kepler 442b, she said. "The Council's begging for help." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "The same council that voted to keep humans out of the Defense Pact?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "Apparently, the galaxy suddenly remembers we exist." Reyes gave a small smile, cold and sharp. "Good. Then they'll also remember what happens when we go to war." He turned to his crew. "Set coordinates for Kepler 442b. Prepare FTL jump." "Sir," Cho said carefully, "the Council hasn't formally authorized intervention yet." Reyes looked at her, expression unreadable. "They sent a distress call. That's authorization enough." Scene 3, Earth's decision. Back on Earth, General Holt stood before a holographic council, faces of diplomats, scientists, and world leaders. "The Galactic Council has requested aid," he said. "Their fleets are too far. They say the colony will fall within days." The representatives argued immediately. "Why should we risk our soldiers for them? They never helped us when we needed it. They fear us, they call us Deathworlders." Holt let them argue for a while. Then he spoke again, his voice low but powerful. "Because we know what it's like to be alone. To scream for help and get only silence back." The room quieted. "Prepare the fleets," the Prime Minister said finally. "Show them what humanity really is." Scene 4, the jump. In orbit, the Fifth Fleet powered up. Engines burned white as space itself seemed to bend. FTL drives online. All systems green. Fleet formation locked. Captain Reyes stood at the front of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. "Initiate jump." A deep hum filled the air, the sound of space folding around them. Then, in a burst of light, the entire fleet vanished. Scene 5, the Council reacts. Back on Nexus Prime, Speaker Nora received the report. She stared at the hologram in disbelief. "They launched already?" Council member Blake frowned. "Without permission?" Rita smiled faintly. "That's how humans work. You don't call them for help. You unleash them." The council chamber filled with murmurs. Some were afraid. Some were hopeful. None were calm. Omar looked out the window toward the stars. "They're coming," he said softly. "Let's just hope they arrive before the colony burns." Scene 6, The Human Arrival, teaser for Part 3. 3 days later, the skies of Kepler 442b burned red. The colony was dying, fire and smoke rising from every city. The raider fleet circled above, their dark ships raining destruction on the ground below. Then suddenly, the sky changed. A ripple spread across the clouds. A thunder-like boom echoed across the planet. From the tear in the sky, 12 bright points of light appeared, growing larger, louder. And then the first human warship broke through. Its shadow fell across the burning colony like a mountain of steel. The lead ship's transmission cut through every channel on the planet. "This is Captain Reyes of the Human Fifth Fleet. Kepler 442b, hold your ground. Help has arrived." The raider ships turned their weapons toward the newcomers. But it was already too late. Humanity had come, and the galaxy was about to remember why the word Deathworlder was spoken with both fear and respect. The skies above Kepler 442b were red with fire. The once green planet had turned into a sea of smoke and ash. The colony's towers lay broken. Farmland burned for miles. The vegan people hid underground, listening to the endless thunder of explosions. Then the thunder stopped. For a brief, strange moment, the sky went quiet. Only the wind carried the sound of burning metal. A small group of survivors peeked out from the ruins. One of them, an old farmer, pointed upward. "The stars," he whispered. "They're moving." High above, space shimmered, like water rippling under invisible heat. Then, with a flash brighter than lightning, 12 human warships broke through the void. Each ship was massive, armored like mountains of steel, glowing with blue energy veins. Their engines lit up the clouds as they formed a tight formation above the colony. On the flagship HSS Vengeance, Captain Reyes watched the planet's surface on the holoscreen. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. "Visual on Raider Fleet," Commander Cho said. 32 enemy vessels. They're smaller but heavily armed." Reyes nodded once. "Let's remind them why they should have stayed in the dark." He leaned forward. "All ships, weapons hot. Target lead destroyers. Fire on my mark." The crew waited in silence, fingers hovering over controls. The air itself felt heavy, filled with quiet fury. "Mark." The sky exploded. Beams of blue-white light ripped through space. The first human salvo hit the raiders before they even reacted. 3 enemy ships vanished in a storm of fire. 2 more broke apart, spinning helplessly toward the planet below. The vegan survivors stared in awe. They had seen nothing like it, silent lightning tearing the heavens open. But the raiders were not finished. The remaining ships turned to face the newcomers, launching hundreds of red plasma bolts toward the human fleet. "Brace for impact," Cho shouted. The human ships' shields flared bright white as the storm hit them. The bridge shook, but the crew stood firm. "Shields holding at 84%, said the technician. Reyes didn't even blink. "Return fire." Missiles streaked out from under the human ships like angry comets. Each one found its target. The raider fleet began to fall apart, one explosion at a time. Scene 2, The Human Ground Forces. Down below, on the burning streets of the main city, vegan survivors heard a new sound, deep, rhythmic thunder from above. Dropships cut through the smoke, leaving trails of blue fire behind them. When the first ship landed, the ground shook. The rear hatch opened and human soldiers stepped out, tall figures in black armor, their visors glowing faint blue. Their leader, Sergeant Kara Miles, raised her rifle and scanned the streets. "Secure the civilians," she ordered. "Shoot anything that isn't friendly." The humans moved fast, precise, silent. To the vegans hiding nearby, they looked almost like machines. But then one soldier knelt beside a crying child, lifted her gently and whispered, "You're safe now." The contrast was terrifying and beautiful. Within minutes, the humans had cleared the nearby streets. Raiders who dared to stay behind were gone, vaporized before they could fire. The old farmer who had seen the ships arrive whispered, "They fight like storms." Scene 3, Fear Across the Stars. Back on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle through live feeds from their drones. The room was silent. On the massive screen, human ships moved in perfect formation, cutting through the raider fleet like blades through paper. Council member Blake's face had gone pale. "They're unstoppable," he said softly. Rita crossed her arms. "No," she said. "They're prepared." Speaker Nora watched the scene, unable to look away. "So this is what they call Deathworlders," she murmured. Omar smiled faintly. Now the galaxy remembers. Scene 4, the final strike. On the Vengeance, the last of the raider ships tried to flee into deep space. Captain, Cho said, 3 enemy vessels attempting to jump. Rhea's voice was calm as ever. No survivors. Sir? He turned to her. They burned a peaceful colony and killed children. No survivors. Cho nodded slowly. Understood. Moments later, the final missiles launched. The sky above Kepler 442b flashed once, then went dark. It was over. Scene 5, the message. Hours later, the fires on the planet began to fade. Human engineers helped rebuild shelters while medics treated the injured. Sergeant Miles walked through the rubble beside a vegan doctor. The alien looked at her with disbelief. You came for us, he said. Miles smiled under her helmet. Someone had to. High above, Captain Reyes stood before the holoscreen, recording a message. This is Captain Elias Reyes of the Human Fifth Fleet. The attack on Kepler 442b has ended. The raiders are gone. To the Galactic Council, humanity has answered your call. But remember, next time you call for Deathworlders, be sure you're ready for what follows. He ended the transmission. Scene 6, the aftermath. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council received the report. The battle had lasted only 23 minutes. The entire raider fleet, gone. Speaker Nora stared at the data, speechless. Blake whispered, "They are too powerful." Rita answered softly, "No. They are just human." Outside the station's great window, the stars burned quietly, unaware that something had changed. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen true power. Not from an empire. Not from an ancient species. But from a small blue world that had finally answered the call. And somewhere in the deep dark between stars, those who preyed on the weak began to whisper a new name in fear. Humanity. The smoke over Kepler 442b was finally clearing. For the first time in weeks, sunlight broke through the red haze and touched the ruined cities. Human engineers walked among the rubble, helping the vegan survivors rebuild their homes. Medical drones hovered above, scanning for injured life signs. The once silent colony was slowly waking up again. Sergeant Kara Miles stood near the edge of a broken wall, watching the sun rise. Her black armor was scratched and burned, but her eyes were calm. A small vegan boy tugged at her sleeve. "Are you leaving?" he asked softly. "Not yet," Kara replied with a faint smile. "We don't leave until it's safe." The boy looked at the human soldiers, huge, armored figures who moved like shadows, and whispered, "You came from the stars, like gods." Kara knelt, meeting his eyes. "Not gods," she said quietly. "Just people who don't run away." Scene 2, the message spreads. 3 days later, the story of Kepler 442b spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council released the official footage, the distress call, the attack, and finally, the arrival of the human fleet. Every world watched. On screens across hundreds of star systems, people saw human warships cutting through the raiders with terrifying precision. They saw soldiers in black armor walking through fire as if it were nothing. And they saw survivors, alien children, scientists, farmers, crying with relief as humans carried them to safety. For some, it was a story of hope. For others, a warning. Scene 3, the Council in session. Inside the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the air was heavy again, but this time with fear, not panic. Speaker Nora stood at the center platform. Around her, holograms of the Council members flickered in their private pods. "Kepler 442b has been secured," she said. "Casualties are minimal. The raider fleet has been destroyed. Humanity has requested no payment or reward." Blake, the delegate from Aquatica, slammed a webbed hand against his desk. "No payment? That's what worries me. They didn't do this for credits or favor. They did it because they wanted to." "Because it was the right thing to do," Rita replied firmly. Blake shook his head. "You saw the footage, Rita? They vaporized entire ships without hesitation. They showed no mercy. What if one day that power turns toward us?" Nora's voice stayed calm. "Then perhaps we should make sure it never does." The hall grew silent. Everyone understood what she meant: keep the humans close. Omar spoke next. "Fear will not help us," he said. "We called them Deathworlders because they survived the impossible. But they also saved our people. They deserve respect, not fear." Blake frowned. Respect? Or obedience? No one answered. Scene 4, on board the Vengeance. High above Kepler 442b, the human flagship HSS Vengeance orbited quietly. Inside, Captain Reyes stood by the viewing window watching the planet below. Commander Cho approached. Council has sent a message, she said. They're impressed. And nervous. Reyes gave a dry chuckle. They should be. The galaxy plays with peace like a child with glass. Sometimes it needs to be reminded what real strength looks like. Cho hesitated. Do you think they'll trust us after this? Reyes turned to her, his gray eyes cold but steady. They don't have to trust us, he said. They just need to remember, when humans arrive we don't come to conquer. We come to end the fight. He turned back toward the window. Set course for Earth. Let the Council handle the politics. Scene 5, Whispers in the Shadows. In the dark corners of the galaxy the news spread faster than light. Pirate captains, mercenary clans and hidden warlords watched the recordings in silence. In smoky bars and data dens, they whispered about the humans, Deathworlders who fought like machines and burned like suns. No one fights them in lives, one pirate said. They don't fight for money, another replied. They fight for reason. That's what makes them worse. And far beyond the Council's reach, in the cold void between stars, the surviving leaders of the raider factions gathered. Only 3 had escaped. Their ships were damaged, their fleets destroyed. One of them, a scarred alien with black armor, slammed his fist on the table. They'll come for us all, he hissed. We have to strike first. The others looked at him in silence. None agreed. None refused. They were too afraid. Scene 6, Humanity's quiet return. Weeks later the human fleet arrived back in orbit over Earth. As the ships docked, crowds gathered below watching with pride. For most humans the news had come as a shock. For generations the Galactic Council had kept them at the edges, called them primitive, violent, unstable. Now the same council had begged for their help. And they had delivered. Inside the UNSC Command Center, General Holt received Captain Reyes' final report. Mission complete, Reyes said. The colony is safe. No further hostilities. Holt nodded slowly. You did well, Captain. The Council will talk about this for years. Reyes smiled faintly. Good. Maybe they'll finally understand, peace doesn't mean weakness. Scene 7, The fear spreads. On distant worlds people still talked about Kepler 442b. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a warning. Old generals replayed the footage of human ships firing without hesitation. Politicians whispered about containment strategies. Merchants debated whether to open trade routes with Earth, or avoid it completely. And in the Council archives, one report circulated quietly, marked confidential. Humanity's military response time, 3 days. Casualty rate, 0.02%. Enemy annihilation, total. Conclusion, humans remain the most dangerous known species in the galaxy. Speaker Nora read the final line again before locking the report away. Then she looked out the window toward the bright blue dot far across the stars. Let's hope, she whispered, we never have to ask them for help again. The Galactic Council Hall was quiet again. Too quiet. Only the faint hum of floating drones filled the vast chamber. The air shimmered with blue light from the holoscreens displaying the ruins of Kepler 442b, still under human protection. Speaker Nora stood at the center, her eyes fixed on the image of the human fleet hovering like silent giants. They didn't even ask for a seat at the council, she said softly. They helped then left. Councillor Vren of the Soth Empire leaned forward, his red scales glinting under the light. And that is exactly why we should be afraid. A species that powerful, and that silent, is unpredictable. Rita from Earth's Alliance faction crossed her arms. Afraid? They saved thousands of lives. Humanity did what none of you dared. Vren hissed. And in doing so they reminded everyone that they are Deathworlders. Born from chaos. Forged by war. What happens when that nature turns against us? The room filled with murmurs. Speaker Nora looked around. Enough. We will discuss further, in private session. As the others left, Nora's expression darkened. She could feel the storm coming. The galaxy had called for help, and now it feared the hand that had answered. Scene 2, The Hidden Network. Deep beneath the glittering spires of Tylo Station, a secret meeting took place. No banners, no records, no light, just shadows and whispered voices. A hologram of the Kepler battle flickered in the center. The humans destroyed an entire raider fleet in hours, said a hooded figure. Our fleets couldn't do that in weeks. Another voice, cold and metallic, replied, They are not allies. They are a threat waiting for reason to strike. A third voice, calm and smooth, spoke up. So, what do you suggest? War? Silence. Then the first figure leaned forward. No. Not war. Containment. Control. The hologram shifted, showing Earth's colonies their trade routes and defense lines. Humans spread like wildfire, the voice continued. If we let them grow unchecked, soon they'll be everywhere. We must isolate them, diplomatically, economically, and militarily. A low agreement rippled through the group. The Shadow Network had made its choice. Scene 3, Earth's awareness. On Earth, inside the United Systems Defense Command, alarms were silent, but the tension was rising. General Holt watched reports appear across the screen. Increased surveillance near human colonies, denied trade routes, strange council activity. They're turning cold, Captain Reyes said, reading the same reports. The moment we helped them, they started seeing us as monsters again. Holt nodded grimly. That's the galaxy for you. They ask for your fire, then fear the burn. Commander Cho entered, holding a new file. Satellite scans detected heavy traffic near the south border. Military convoys. No transponders. Reyes frowned. They're moving fleets? Or building one, Cho said. Against us. Holt leaned back. Let them plan. The Council forgets. We don't need approval to survive. We never did. He looked out the massive window toward the night sky. Send a message to all colonies. Quietly. Tell them to prepare for containment measures. We're not starting a war, but we won't be boxed in either. Scene 4, Whispers in the Galaxy. The news spread quietly, in fragments and rumors. Humans are arming again. They're building warships near Luna. They're planning to strike first. In truth, the humans were only preparing defenses. But fear twisted the truth faster than light. On the colony world of Elaris, alien merchants refused to sell to humans. On Vera Prime, the planetary governor ordered all human settlements to register their weapons. And in the great academies of the Zeth Union, young cadets studied one name with dread, Earth. Scene 5, The Silent Council. Weeks later, the Galactic Council met again. But this time, the session was closed to the public. Holograms of ships, fleets, and weapon models filled the air. We must form a united front, said Vren. If humanity expands unchecked, they will dominate every corridor of trade and defense. Omar, the old ambassador from Dkor, spoke softly. You would build walls against those who saved your people? Vren's eyes narrowed. I build walls to survive. Gratitude doesn't stop bullets. Speaker Nora raised her hand. Enough. The Council will not authorize aggression. Humanity is not our enemy, yet. Vren leaned closer. Then what will you do when they decide they no longer need us? Nora hesitated, and that silence was all the answer he needed. Scene 6, The Message. That night, a single encrypted message left the Council network, bouncing across hundreds of relays until it reached Earth. The message was simple. From unknown source to Earth High Command. Subject, watch the Council. Trust no one. Captain Reyes read it twice. You think it's real? He asked. Holt didn't answer. He just looked up at the stars again. Someone in the Council still has a conscience, he said finally. But it won't stop what's coming. Scene 7, The Calm Before the Storm. On the colony world of Arcadia, human children played under the twin suns, unaware that fleets were moving in the dark. Traders smiled, soldiers trained, and politicians made speeches about peace. But in the command centers of every major power, red lines were being drawn on star maps. Ships were being armed. Treaties rewritten. Spies deployed. The galaxy was dividing again, not by race or belief but by fear. And far beyond it all, the humans waited, calm and quiet. Because they had learned something the rest of the galaxy hadn't. You don't survive on a death world by trusting peace. You survive by being ready for when it ends. The stars above the galactic core burned bright and distant, but inside the Great Council Station, shadows moved quietly. No alarms, no open conflict. Just whispers, coded messages, and silent decisions that would change the galaxy forever. Speaker Nora sat alone in her private chamber. The silver lights reflected on her pale face as she read a new report. It was short. Fleet movements confirmed. Soth Empire gathering ships near neutral borders. Trade routes closed to human convoys. Multiple species forming a joint defense pact. Her hand trembled slightly. It was happening, the very thing she feared. A soft knock came at the door. Enter, she said. Counselor Rita stepped in, her green skin dim under the pale glow. They've started, haven't they? She asked quietly. Nora nodded. The Council's words of peace mean nothing now. Everyone is preparing for war, even if they won't admit it. Rita took a deep breath. Do you think the humans know? Nora looked at her. They always know. They watch more than we think. Scene 2, Earth's response. Far away, deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, inside a secret facility known as Sentinel Command, humanity was already preparing. The chamber was vast, rows of glowing screens, digital maps of every known star system, and silent soldiers moving with precision. General Holt stood at the main console. His face was tired, but his eyes were sharp. "Status?" he asked. Commander Cho replied, "We've confirmed the Council's buildup. Multiple fleets are repositioning under the label of peace patrols. They're not fooling anyone." "Good," Holt said simply. "Let them come. But we won't strike first." "We never do." Captain Reyes frowned. "And if they blockade us?" Holt smiled faintly. "Then we'll remind them why they call us Deathworlders." A quiet laugh rippled through the room, but everyone knew it wasn't a joke. Humanity didn't want war, but it was built for survival. Scene 3, The Secret Pact. In the shadow of a dying moon, 6 ships hovered, no lights, no insignias. Inside one of them, the leaders of the Silent Pact gathered. Vren of the Soth Empire, High Admiral Zeal of the Yearn Dominion, and several others sat around a holographic table. Zeal's voice was sharp. "Our intelligence says Earth is preparing for containment. They're building new orbital stations and long-range cannons." Vren hissed. "They knew this would happen. They always know." "Then we must strike first," Zeal said coldly. "Before they grow stronger." Another leader shook his head. "We cannot fight them directly. Their technology and tactics are unpredictable. Even their AI systems scare us." Vren tapped his clawed fingers on the table. "Then we make others fight for us. Pirates, mercenaries, proxy states. Let humanity bleed slowly, piece by piece." The hologram shifted to show a map of human colonies, glowing red marks. "Target their outposts," Vren said. "Blame it on raiders. Make the galaxy turn against them again." The others agreed. The silent war had begun, not with armies but with shadows. Scene 4, Fire at Dawn. 3 weeks later it happened. At dawn on the human colony of Eden's Reach, the sky turned red. Explosions shattered the peace. Cargo bays burned. Communications were jammed. Unknown ships, black and unmarked, appeared from the dark side of the planet and opened fire. Colonel Adams grabbed the radio. "This is Eden Command. We're under attack." "Repeat, under attack by unidentified vessels." Static answered. In orbit, 2 human frigates moved to intercept. Their captain, Lyra Monroe, gave the order calmly. "Engage." Minimal mercy. The battle was short and brutal. The raider fleet was wiped out within minutes. But one thing was clear: the attackers were not raiders. Their weapons were advanced, their tactics organized. When the smoke cleared, Lyra stared at the wreckage. "They wanted us to think it was random," she whispered. "But this was planned." Her words were recorded and within hours sent to Earth Command. Scene 5, Revelation. At Sentinel Command, Holt watched the footage in silence. "Pirates don't use cloaking drives," Reyes said. "Or plasma disruptors," Cho added. Holt nodded slowly. "No. These weren't pirates. These were Council weapons, stripped of markings but not of guilt." He turned to his officers. "We stay quiet. No retaliation yet. Let them think we're confused. The more they underestimate us, the better." Reyes frowned. "And if they strike again? Then we'll remind them what happens when humans stop being nice." Scene 6, The Council's Dilemma. The Galactic Council met again. This time, every representative was tense. Speaker Nora entered late, her face pale. "You've all seen the reports," she said. "Eden's Reach was attacked. Over 2,000 dead." Vren hissed dramatically. "Perhaps the humans provoked the raiders. It is their nature to create conflict." Rita stood. "That's a lie and you know it. Those ships weren't raiders, they were military grade. Someone in this room supplied them." The hall erupted. Shouts, accusations, denials, chaos. Nora slammed her hand on the desk. "Enough." Her voice echoed through the chamber. "If we keep fighting shadows, there will be no galaxy left to save." But deep down she knew, the shadows were already winning. Scene 7, The Return Signal. That night, back on Earth, a secure beacon activated. It came from deep space, coordinates unknown. Captain Reyes read the signal. "It's the same encryption as the warning we got before, the one signed by Enda." The message was short. "They're coming. The pact is real. Prepare your fleets. The Council will not stop them." Holt exhaled slowly. "So it begins." He turned to the officers around him. Send the recall order. All fleets, all colonies. Quietly. Reyes hesitated. Sir, we're going to war? Holt looked out at the stars, his reflection cold in the glass. No, he said softly. The war has already started. We're just the only ones ready for it. Scene 8, closing image. Far above the Earth, the first human dreadnoughts began to awaken, ancient ships hidden since the first interstellar wars. Their hulls gleamed in the dark, engines humming like sleeping beasts. And somewhere in the void, beyond the reach of any star, something darker stirred, something not part of the Council nor the Pact. A presence watching, waiting, smiling. The galaxy was preparing for open war. But none of them truly understood what it meant to fight Deathworlders.